So we're here on Zoom with Min Basadur, one of the kind of original thinkers when it comes to structured creative problem solving. Min has a long and distinguished history in, corporate work and in consulting and in academia. And there's been some recent articles published about the origin of the phrase or the invitational stem, how might we? It's used in structured creative problem solving like the Osborne-Parnes method, but it's also used in design thinking, which is kind of a stepchild, if you will, of creative problem solving. So hello, Min, welcome.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you very much for thinking of doing this interview. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's get right after it. What the heck and how and when did that phrase start to be used? How might we?
I had the fortune of going to the 1971 Creative Problem Solving Institute, the 17th, that was headed by Sid Parnes and built from origins from brainstorming and Alex Osborne. And when I went there, I got excited. I met Sid because he had a process for how you handle a problem. And I had discovered that many people had trouble, very smart people in my job at Proctor Gamble, in not knowing how to define a problem, just taking a problem and trying to solve it. And Sid, in his process, the second step was problem definition. After you had talked about the problem, fact finding, you defined the problem, and that was where the beauty was. And the way he taught to define the problem is, you said, you took some facts and you said, ways to, how might we, in what ways might we, how to, I wish. And he used these phrases as a way that you could define a problem. Yeah. He favored, in what ways might we. I was so excited, I was going to immediately start applying what I'd learned in my job, which is what a lot of people don't do. And I found all kinds of opportunities in the research and development community at Procter & Gamble. And I created an 8-step process, which was more robust and more attuned to what the world was really like in industry. And I found that people really liked how might we. And it became a stimulating way, and that's where how might we came from. So I've used it all over the world since then, in many different ways, but always it's the trick to problem definition, where you take facts or information and turn them into challenges, starting with how might we.
Yes.
And so this is very relevant everywhere I've been to. It works in different languages. I've got it in 15 different languages, Russian and Yugoslavian, you name it, Chinese. But the whole idea catches, hey, we say, how might we? And the other way it's used, by the way, is on a smaller basis, is Sid was an ultimate deferral of judgment. And that's the key to everything. You stay open, defer judgment. And if someone comes up and offers an idea, the tendency is to immediately judge it. But the how might we phrase is to take that negative. If somebody says it would cost too much, how might we find a cheaper way?
Yes.
How might we make it more interesting? So it became a way also of turning a negative thing into a positive thing during problem solving.
So prior to, and for those of the listeners or watchers of this video who aren't familiar with structured creative problem solving, otherwise known as CPS, they don't understand that prior to using how might we, in the specific structure of that process, there are other steps, as you mentioned, fact-finding, but also the phrase I wish is an invitational stem for basically what's your vision? What do you want to have happen here?
Yeah, we go even further. Our first step is called problem finding.
Yes.
Problem finding is a very active, if you're going to be an innovative person, entrepreneur, you've got to be looking for problems that people have. What problems do our customers have? What problems? You've got to be looking for problems. Yes. That's a critical step in the real world process. And they can be individual. You can say, What are some problems I'm striving for, etc. But discovering a problem is a very important step. And then there comes fact finding, where you explore a lot more about it when you've picked one. And when you are doing problem finding, you're diverging. You're diverging and looking out.
Yes.
So very great inventors were great problem finders. People like Edison and people like Land, they discovered problems that nobody else could see. So also the process is, it ends in action. If you don't take action, it doesn't really matter. So that was a key part of it, as well as the planning phase. So it's an 8-step process that just fits industry perfectly and is understood.
So let me ask you this. One of the criticisms I've heard from some folks related to How Might We, and just basically generating corporate solutions or entrepreneurial solutions, is that somehow How Might We has never been focused on societal issues. And so what's your thinking on how might we might be applied to social challenges?
Yeah, it's good for any kind of problem. And the trick becomes this: somebody's got to own the problem. If you don't own the problem, so don't go off to a conference and brainstorm 55 ways to solve climate change. You got to have an owner who owns that problem. Now, one of the best things I've done is in Cincinnati, we had a meeting of people who were interested in the town. And some people were there because they wanted climate change, and some people wanted because of poverty, etc. Now, what we did was we diverged on all the different challenges there were, all the different how might we's, how might we this, how might we that, and we listened to everybody. We honed in on the critical ones. We created what we call a challenge map, where everybody could see where their challenge fit and this challenge fit. We're all on the same page. We're not competing with each other. They're all up there. And then you can make choices about which one to pick. That's an example. So it's good. We've done it in town. We have a town locally who uses How Might We, uses the process when it has town meetings with the mayor, etc. It works anywhere.
Yes.
But you've got to know how to use it and appreciate the process.
So one of the, I think, things that you are noted for is the whole process of challenge mapping. Challenge mapping was not included, as far as I know, in the original Osborne-Parnes structured process.
Absolutely not.
But when I experienced challenge mapping from you directly, it was a real eye-opener, because it really helped you sort out which problems you should be attacking or going after. Can you tell me how you elaborated or how you created challenge mapping?
Again, it's the idea of it's problem definition is what it boils down to. And when you're doing problem definition, you've got to have the right people in the room, the right people who want something to happen, at least somebody who owns the problem.
Yes.
And then what you do is you start generating how might we challenges, all kinds. And then you do some converging where you agree on what the most challenges are. And then we have a process called the why, what's stopping analysis. That's another one that I came across and invented. And if you ask now why can always take you up. You say, why might I want to do it? But the what's stopping is critical. And when you do the why, what's stopping analysis, that drives challenge mapping. So you end up by asking, why might we want to involve people in poverty reduction? And you might get an answer up, and I say, what's stopping us from doing that? And little by little, you get the more focused challenges at the bottom and the broader challenge at the top, and you create an entire map of how might we's. And I've published articles on challenge mapping as being the way you can expand the pie, so we're not competing with each other. We're seeing where all the pieces fall into place. It's a wonderful strategic planning tool.
Yes.
Is where are we going, etc. So I found that very powerful. Used it everywhere, and I also teach it in my classes, my MBA classes. But the trigger is why what's stopping. Why what's stopping is a trigger to, and then why else Why else might we want to? What else is stopping us? And
Yes.
that, now you have to create a collage of important problems everybody's bought into.
That's a good way to put it, a collage, giving you a picture of what you might go after solving or working on.
Very good.
So let's move to a similar topic or a related topic, and it has to do with diversity. Now, you talked about a problem owner and there being a need for a problem owner in a problem-solving process in order for the results of the work people do to be relevant. Someone has to be able or be empowered to do something with the various problem frames and ideas resulting from them, and so forth. So talk to me about what you think about the necessary, or the need rather, for inclusion
Yeah.
and diversity.
That's really, really important. So if someone says, I have a problem, first thing we do is we meet him and we call that as problem a fuzzy situation. He might think he knows what it is. We do fact finding together with him, and we do challenge mapping with him, so he can really pick, oh, that's the problem I want to solve. That's it. That's the one I want. Say, great, great. Now, by this time, he's been exposed to the process. We think he's an owner. Say, now, who should be involved? Who should be involved? We need to put a team together. And now we start wondering, who could help you? When we start brainstorming or diverging, who could help you? Well, Mary and Tom and Jim. How about somebody? Somebody from? This is where diversity comes in. We
Yes.
want to make sure we have a diverse group of people, and also we want people to see, if you include people, engage them, they start developing ownership of the problem too. They thought they were just going to help, but now they do. So we'd say now there's another kind of diversity, and that is called problem-solving style. One thing we've invented is the profile, where some people prefer generating new problems, some people like defining problems, some people from getting solutions, some people like, let's get some diversity of people the way they think. And so we are looking for, and we prompt them, who else might help you? Who else might do? Plus, could we look outside? Let's look broadly. And we try to get as many people as possible involved. And that's critical. And that's what builds inclusion. It builds diversity. It builds engagement. And that's a huge part of making this process work. Yeah. So basically, that's huge. But the process is what does it for you. We're not doing it for fun. We're doing it because it works. It actually works. We get solutions that people wouldn't have thought of before.
Yes.
Can I give you a very quick example?
Sure.
Okay, we're back at Proctor Gamble. I'm in my office. I get a phone call from a brand group. I don't know who. Say it's Mr. Clean. We got to talk to you because we're having a problem. We got a bunch of advertising claims we want to make. But darn it, they're good. And everything has to go through legal. That darn legal, they're so hard to get stuff through. Okay, so we get a test of meeting. We say, all right, who should be in the meeting? Vicky, Tom, George. But and I'm young and I don't know, but they didn't mention anybody from legal. So I said, well, what about legal? Look, kid, we don't want them in here. We're trying to get around them. So out of my mouth came, who knows more about getting around legal than legal?
Yeah.
You bring them in, we will help you.
Yes.
We got that problem solved in less than a day. It would have taken 11 months of wrangling a memo writing otherwise. Get the right people in the room. Ask yourself who might help. Dream of it. Think about it.
Yes. Well, and so
I have many of those.
It's a great example, and the whole idea of diversity and inclusion in problem solving also depends on the problem you're trying to solve. If you're working on a legal problem at Procter & Gamble, well, inclusion means getting legal people involved, as well as the sort of original problem owners in marketing or whatever. But if you're working on world hunger, then your inclusion needs to be, of course, much broader.
Yeah. You got to think about, well, first of all, if you don't want to be working on world hunger, that's one of those things that's way too bad. But if you're working on how to reduce poverty in our city, that's probably a better starting point. Now you start looking at what kind of people do we have in the city? Do we have people who are from Japan? Do we have people from Asia? Who are the people in our city who would be interested in helping out? And now you start including them. Who are the really people? Who are the people who are going to be affected by this? Who could help us actually solve this?
Yeah.
Now you start looking at how about somebody from the government? How about bringing in Joe Biden, somebody from here? Who are people who could help this problem that we're trying to solve here, which is an important problem? So that means including lots of people, being very careful, look ahead, who might be able to help, who is going to be affected, who's going to be, by what solution we have, who's going to be impacted by our solution, bring them in. That's a very important point. And we could do a lot of help if people would be willing to. See, today we live in sound bites, bang, 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 social media, arguing with each other. Nobody can step back and say, could we, and bipartisan, wow,
Yeah.
could we attack this problem? Could we attack this problem? Do we have people? You got to have an owner. Somebody who says, I'm going to devote my life to this, and I want to do it, and I'll do what it takes. Same thing with a company. If you're trying to bring innovation into your company, you've got to get a leader who's willing to take a risk.
Yes.
I'm willing to take a risk that we can develop innovation in our company, and I'm going to take the leadership and model it. But it takes leadership.
Well, it brings to mind a thought of, if you want to solve a problem, you have to have that desire to solve a problem before this all to begin. If there's no desire, if there's a desire actually to stay in conflict in order to prevent solving a problem or such, then you're at a non-starter. What would be your suggestions to folks who are in a fuzzy situational period as a group that are having so much conflict that they can't get started, so to speak? What would be your thoughts on how they might sort of get organized to actually start confronting the actual problem?
They would need some training in the creative process of some kind. And it's very simple stuff. It makes sense. Defer judgment makes all kinds of sense. Diverge first, and I found that when you expose people, they don't fight it. They like it. I get it. Nobody likes really to fight with each other. They would like to work, but if you show them how you can operate as a team, and a lot of times I'll just take an hour and a half at the beginning of a problem-solving session to make sure everybody understands the process. And then I facilitate the process with them, and I guide them. I don't tell them what to do. I just guide them through the process. And I've been everywhere where people like solving problems. They really do. And they like to solve real problems, and they like to get credit for what they're doing and be engaged and have people say great stuff. And that again goes back to picking the right people to be in your room, and the right people, whoever they are, they're going to like the process. It's automatic if you've prepared them. You say, look, we're going to try a little different thing here, a little different process than you're used to. Come on and be ready. And now you've got everything starting to work very nicely.
Well, Min, I want to thank you for being with us today to talk about issues of diversity and inclusion and the origin of how might we, and other aspects of structured creative problem solving. Any final thoughts for our watchers?
I'm I guess the big thing is we use the phrase, you're innovative, you just don't happen to know it. And if you're interested in learning more, find out where you can learn more. Find out, go to howmightwe.com. Look up the website for the Creative Problem Solving Institute. Do something, but we need it. We need it so badly. We need to start thinking innovatively. As the robots start taking over the world, the jobs are going to go away. We need more and more entrepreneurship about what can we do and how can we be ready. So the idea is do something to get acquainted with the stuff that's around that can help.
Well, very good, sir. I thank you for your time today.
Gregg, you were great. Thanks very much for leading me through.